lovely, isn't it? Well, cheer you all up. I'm here to talk about nannies. I don't know why I'm here to talk about nannies. I was given that task by Reward Gateway. Thank you very much. The thing I'm really here to talk about is that divide between work and home life, or rather the absence, actually, of that, as we all know. My name is Steve Philpott. I'm from Tower Hamlets Homes, which I'll introduce in a moment. I'm the head of people services there, otherwise known as the head of HR. And I've been there for just over 2 years now. So that's me. Does everyone know where Tower Hamlets is? There's a clue. Yeah, just there, yeah. So some people don't know, and why would you, particularly if you don't live or come from London? But that's Tower Hamlets. It's this area in the red there, and you'll recognise the sort of area it is. So you've got London just off to the west there, London City Airport, and Newham to the east, Barking, Dagenham, and the old Ford factory, and so forth. So it's the east end of London. In the borough we have Canary Wharf, which replaces the old docks, which all shut down in the 70s and 80s, made virtually half the population of Tower Hamlets redundant within about 5 to 10 years. It's the home to, or was the home to, that man, whoever he is, Jack the Ripper. Nobody knows, but he came from Whitechapel, which is sort of up here somewhere near Stepney and Bow and those sorts of places. You might recognise those more than you do Tower Hamlets, perhaps. It's the east end of London, so it's Blitz country. So there's the old Queen Mum looking the east end in the face after it all got destroyed in the Second World War. Those two like to call Bow and Stepney and Whitechapel their patch. So that's Ronnie and Reggie Cray there. So we've had a bit of a colourful history in Tower Hamlets. We've had the sort of big things, big disasters that have affected us as a community, and in many ways have brought the residents of the area together. And there is still in Tower Hamlets, if you go there today, a certain buzz where people it's a real community. It really is. Not in a sort of twee, Jam and Jerusalem sort of, Maureen next door sort of community, but a community where people do look out for each other and do care about their neighbours. It's a really exciting place to work and I'm sure to live. Also the home of the Cockney tradition. So you've got the pearly kings and queens. You don't tend to see them out like that very often now, but they are still there. Nice convincing Cockneys, I'm sure you'll agree. We also have unconvincing Cockneys. So you'll get the nanny, Mary Poppins references scattered liberally throughout the afternoon. And I can't obviously put a picture of Dick Van Dyke up there without his replacement. We've moved now from chimney sweeps to gas lighters. So if you've seen that film, good on you. I saw it recently. It's perhaps not as good as the original, but it's still a load of fun, so that's good. And we also have, Walford is actually sort of here. So if you look at Walford Tube Station on EastEnders, that is actually on the district line, and it's where Bow Station should be. So there's a fact you can take away. If you learn nothing else, you now learn that, so that's good. The borough has also been a recipient over the years of wave of immigration. And the first wave really came in sort of circa 1743, when French Huguenots came over to the borough. So they were being persecuted by the Ancient regime of Catholicism in France. And they all came to London and settled sort of around the Aldgate Brick Lane area. So Brick Lane, where you go and have your curry, that's kind of where they settled. And that building, in fact, it was originally built in 1743 as a Huguenot church, and it's on Brick Lane. You can still go and see it today. After the Huguenots moved on, Jews arrived in East London. And as you can see, this is on Brick Lane too. And it's still there, and it does, I think, some of the best bagels in London. And the Huguenot church became a synagogue. Yeah. And then after the Jewish population sort of dispersed, you then had wave of immigration coming in after the war. So all the new homes being built in Tower Hamlets, relatively cheap place to live in London at the time. It isn't now. But you had the Bangladeshi community in particular coming into East London and setting up home around Brick Lane. And in fact, this Huguenot chapel, which turned into a synagogue, is now a mosque. So, yeah, the reason I mention all that, really just to add that kind of sense of it's a real community, and it's a real blend of communities, of different cultures and humanity, frankly, in Tower Hamlets, which makes it not only an exciting place to work, but a really interesting one too. So that's Tower Hamlets. The homes bit, we've done the Tower Hamlets bit, the homes bit. Tower Hamlets Homes is an arm's length management organisation, so it operates about 21,000 homes. It manages them. All of those homes are owned by Tower Hamlets Council. So we operate council housing, about 21,000 homes, about half of them tenants, about half of them leasehold, all the way around the borough. There's a great variety of stock that we manage, from some of the earliest council housing, 1901 listed estates, through the sort of perhaps more stereotypical image of council housing these days, the 1950s, 1960s, 1970s blocks, of which we manage 901 blocks across the borough, through to the more modern sort of development. So quite a wide range of homes across the borough. We're not just bricks and mortar though, we also go out and support our communities. So here's some of the things we're doing in terms of supporting our residents, some of whom are not wealthy, in obtaining advice and getting support with employment, with accessing welfare, whatever it might be. So we're out there in the community helping our residents, and here is our chief executive talking to police officers and the like, trying to resolve some of the issues we face in our community, particularly around ASB and so forth, that you'd associate with an inner city area. So we do the bricks and mortar, but we do the community services part of that as well. Oh yeah, and we're the landlord of the year, which is marvellous, really exciting. That we've been called the landlord of the year for last year. So that's really good. So we're not doing a bad job. Underpinning all of that work, of course, is our staff. So this is one of our caretakers. We've got about 550 to 600 staff, if you include sort of agency workers and so forth. They do a variety of different jobs. About 200 of them do that. So they're street sweepers, they're caretakers. They go around our estates, sweeping stairwells, unblocking bin chutes, clearing up the bins with wheels on that they take to the edge of the estate for the binmen to come around and do their thing. So doing a whole load of stuff. They're scattered across all of our estates. They're out there, isolated, day in, day out, all weathers, whatever's going on, they're there. And they are really passionate about the communities they serve. Yeah, it's Tower Hamlets. We are passionate about the communities we serve. That's what Tower Hamlets is about. Rough times for the public sector recently. So if you've been watching the news over the last 10 years, you know that there has been a lot of reductions to local authority funding. So the 36% cuts to budgets in some local authorities. And indeed Northamptonshire went bust last year, is now being split up. So we are at breaking point in many respects as a local authority, and Tower Hamlets Homes is a wholly owned subsidiary of Tower Hamlets Council. So there is a constriction on income that's operating into local government at the moment, and that income represents a big chunk of our income as an organisation. The other chunk of our income is rents, obviously from our tenants. Yeah. And those have been squeezed as well because rents have been reducing for the last 4 or 5 years. The government's formula for setting rents is a regulated thing, and it's been reducing by 1% for the last 4 years. So that's put pressure onto obviously our income streams, and we have to go back like all housing associations and have a look at our business plan and reset things. Universal credit, aside from having an impact on our residents directly, it has an impact on us as a business because back in the day we would get housing benefit paid to us directly, so it didn't touch the resident, but now it goes to the resident first, who then elects whether to pay it to us, whether to pay their rent. So most of them do, I'm glad to say, but obviously there is that lessening of security for us in terms of our income. So we've got this kind of double pressure of just reducing resources really. And inevitably what that leads to is pay freezes and job cuts. That's been the picture for a few years across the sector, including in Tower Hamlets Homes. At the same time, we've had to deal with some awful things as a sector. So this, as you know, is Grenfell over in Kensington, Chelsea, which is not too far from here. Now, the tragic events of Grenfell and the loss of life that occurred is something that obviously, you know, in the sector we're more than committed to making sure that can't happen again and doesn't happen again. One of the impacts of Grenfell is that housing associations, housing providers such as Tower Hamlets Homes have had to reprioritise a lot of what they do, quite understandably, quite rightly, and review all of their processes, the way we manage our buildings to make sure that our residents are safe and that can't happen again. And we've had to do so, obviously, in a short space of time. So that's been a big disruption to our business plans, as necessary as it unfortunately has become. At the same time, the housing crisis, which has been here for years, continues to get worse. Homelessness gets worse. The demand for new homes that we can't build because they're too expensive gets greater every day. Residents going to food banks, working families going to food banks because they can't afford to make ends meet. It's tough out there for our residents and indeed, I'm sure, some of our staff. Community cohesion, the rise of hate crime in a lot of our communities, including East London. So that, unfortunately, it's actually Camden, it's not Tower Hamlets Homes, but unfortunately that's happening across London, and that happened in December last year. That was the day before the election that particular incident happened. And the fact that that's happening in late 2019, early 2020 is just crazy. But it's something that our guys need to go and deal with when they're cleaning up the ASB and sorting out the issues in our communities. And additionally, all of our staff over the last few years have had to expand their knowledge into areas where they didn't have any involvement before. So in areas such as domestic abuse, human trafficking, child sex exploitation, and so forth. These are all new areas where, particularly as a local government affiliated organisation, our staff have needed to develop their skills, you know, understand what the signs and the symptoms of all those issues are and be ready to deal with them and to work with residents who are suffering such issues. So our staff's life, the volume of work has become bigger and the complexity of work has become greater. But you've never had it so good, said erstwhile Prime Minister Harold Macmillan. Why have we never had it so good? Because actually we've got gold-plated pensions, we're marvellous, we're sorted. I'm all right, Jack, yeah? It's all gravy in the public sector, surely. You know, flexible working, so I can just do what I like for a few years and then I'll retire with a massive pension. I'm loving it. Clearly that guy, I don't know what 50s were like, I wasn't around, but today that doesn't wash. You know, you may know that the public sector has had pay freezes for a number of years, and even though the salary caps are now being released by the government, which is very welcome as far as it goes, it doesn't go very far in that the new increases in salary don't match inflation, and obviously you've got that gap from when we had the pay freeze. So I say all of that not to sort of say, woe is me, how awful it is to work in local government, because it's not. It's an amazing sector to work in, but it is tough. So, you know, you've got an organisation with less resources, you've got staff not getting paid anymore, and you've got much more demand for services. So it's a difficult situation to manage. And as a result, those things sort of stack up. By April 2017, in THH, mental health issues was responsible for 38.7% of our overall ill health in the organisation. So it had become a big issue for us. And just to bring it out of Tower Hamlets Homes mode, 38.7% isn't too dissimilar from what UK PLC have in terms of 40% of our national average ill health is due to mental ill health, which is probably why a lot of you are here. So it's a big problem, and how did we try and tackle that in Tower Hamlets Homes? I've got a hypothesis, right, which is that is completely untrue, okay? Is there anybody who can step out of the office, and leave all the stuff that you're talking about at work behind and just step, not necessarily onto a beach, but step into home mode and just stop thinking altogether about work. Put your hand up if that's you. Okay, let the video show no hands, okay? So the counter must be true, surely, which is this guy, he's at work, he's got a tie on, so obviously he's at work, but he's worried, and I suspect he's not just worried about work. I suspect he's worried about how he's going to pay his childcare, how his mum's going to get the social services she needs, how he's going to manage to afford to buy the new TV because the old one blew up last night. You know, all of those sorts of issues. He's sitting at work, those things are playing on his mind and impacting whatever it is he's doing that day at work. Now, if that's true, then my hypothesis is, why wouldn't an employer want to get into that person's life and help them? Yeah? Why wouldn't an employer want to do that? Certainly as an employer, I want to help my employees with stuff that's impacting in their personal life that's actually therefore impacting in their work performance. But how to do that without being one of these nannies? Mary Poppins, if you didn't know. Mary Poppins isn't there, that's just the nannies that were blown away when Mary Poppins arrived. Watch the film. How to achieve that without being a nanny kind of employer that I've been perhaps accused of in the guide to this session. So our journey at THH, where we started in 2017 with all that mental health issues, was that we had a really dusty set of policies, procedures, and employee offer that basically had been handed down to us 10 years before when we came out of the council. We haven't really looked at it, we haven't really changed it, we haven't really promoted it. It said absolutely nothing about well-being other than, oh, there's an occupational health service that's provided by the council, but that's it. So we're not going to enter your private life. What you do after 5 o'clock is totally up to you, nothing to do with us, you sort yourself out. An approach that patently was not helping our employees. Didn't help our employees in those issues outside of work, didn't help our employees feel good about working for us, so much so that they didn't think we cared. I think it's 53% of our staff said, all right, yeah, you care about our well-being. 47% said, no, you don't, not at all. So we couldn't change a lot of those things. You know, a lot of it was linked in HR land with what was happening in local government, the national pay negotiation machinery and so forth. Lots that we couldn't change. So it was about sort of saying, okay, well, the situation we've got isn't satisfactory. Our employees are saying it's not satisfactory. What can we do to change things? So we came up with this, THH Buzz. THH, because that's who we are. We wanted staff to remember who they were employed by. And Buzz, because we wanted it to be a bit buzzy. That's literally the extent of the branding, which won awards. And get more for your bees and honey, because it's old Cockney, you see, bees and honey money, yeah. And it was about sort of repackaging all of our existing benefits, really, and making sure that our staff knew about them, because you hadn't communicated them in 10 years. Adding all the reward gateway discounts, because you know that's new and funky and voluntary and cool, but also our wellbeing centre too. So what this was about really is saying to staff, we're going to move away from the old land. That's still important, it's still there, but we're entering this new turf. Yeah? And this new turf isn't about us, it's about you. Yeah? This is about your discounts, this is about saving you money and your smart spending, if you want to. You can ignore all of that if you don't want to use it, up to you. But if you do want to use it, if you do want to be savvy and save money and so forth, knock yourself out, there's a way to do it. Good on you. And likewise, well-being, totally voluntary, but up to you if you use it. And if you do, we're right there supporting you doing so. Inside the Wellbeing Centre was this, which some of you, if you're Reward Gateway clients, will recognise as being the Wellbeing Centre in the Reward Gateway platform. With its 4 themes of move, munch, money and mind, so quite broad in its approach, looking at all the different facets of well-being. And as you can see there, sort of some lifestyle stuff, voluntary content, which you don't need to look at, but if you do, that might be useful to you, might be relevant to whatever your circumstances are. Again, it's about you, it's not about us as your employer. We also introduced a platform from First Care, which is an independent company based in Watford, which is nurse-led sickness absence reporting. So when you've reported absence to your line manager, you phone your line manager, oh, I'm not coming in today, I've got a cold. What does your manager say? Oh, sorry to hear that. See you tomorrow? Yeah, okay, thanks, yeah, she'll be better tomorrow. Great. That was a useful conversation. That added value to you, didn't it? The idea is if you phone a nurse and say that to a nurse, the nurse might be able to advise you how to get better quicker. You know, take some aspirin, rest, whatever it is. You can establish an anticipated return to work date with a bit of credibility rather than saying, yeah, I reckon I'll be there tomorrow, but if I'm not, so be it. So it gives your employer a bit of better ability to plan your absence. And the other thing that First Care does that's key is it then sends notification to your manager that you phoned in ill, and it triggers your manager when you return to do the dreaded return to work interview. Yeah? So return to work interview typically in Tower Hamlets Homes before we had First Care was, I'll see you back then. Yep, I am. Here I am. Good. You feeling better? Oh yeah, still got a bit of a sore throat, but you know, well enough to be in the office now. Good, okay, we missed you, but I must read this HR policy and I must say the concern that we have about the impact your sickness absence has had on your work and colleagues. Okay, thanks, I'll go back to my desk now. Great, cool. What a dumb conversation to have. Again, no value added to anybody, least of all the employee who's had the experience of being unwell. So what First Care do is basically script the conversation, bespoke on why you've been away, so that the manager is asking the right questions to help them drill down to the fundamental point of return to work interview, which is how can I help you to stay in the office now you've come back? How can that return to work be sustainable? So really kind of upping the quality of conversation that you have with your manager when you experience ill health, for whatever reason. But mental health, obviously one of those traditionally stigmatized discussions that no one wants to have because it's somehow you've failed if you can't cope, which as we all know, hopefully, is total utter rubbish. And actually everyone's got mental health. It goes up and down at various frequencies, sometimes really high, sometimes terribly low. But everyone's got it. So it's just an aspect of being human. So let's just acknowledge that in the office. And what we did, you do it, don't you? You have the cakes, you have the donation tin, you do all the paraphernalia, you put the things on the intranet and all the rest of it. All very good, all very lovely. But you also we have a mental health first aid network. So it's a team of staff who have been trained to basically be a buddy. So those staff who are experiencing mental ill health, whether it's resulted in sickness from work or not, can approach one of the mental health first aiders and say, look, can I have a chat? Over a cup of tea in a quiet room somewhere. I just want to bounce some ideas. I want to talk to someone about what I'm facing. And those guys are trained up to have that conversation, help you work through whatever it is that you're facing and struggling with perhaps. So it's about really having a peer network that can support you and putting a marker in the sand within the business to say, you know what, it's all right to have mental ill health. It's okay to be a bit crummy. You can speak to your peers. No one's going to judge you. No one's going to think you've failed. So go and speak to them. So, yeah, you do all the cakes, you do all the time to talk, tea bags and so forth, all really good. And you can do all of that for free. And then for the cost of 1 or 2 training courses, you can produce a network of peers that can help your staff in a very practical sense to get through whatever it is that life has decided to chuck at them right now. Now, I think that's fantastic, but it's what we did to destigmatise mental health. We also destigmatised domestic abuse. So we tied in with something we were doing in the community around domestic abuse, which is a big issue in Tower Hamlets, and none of our residents were disclosing domestic abuse to to the council or to us. So we did this whole big push and promotion about it within the community, so expanded that into staff land. So we did all of our posters, we did 16 days of activism and the White Ribbon Day campaign, which some of you might be aware of. Really getting out there and talking to people about domestic abuse. We did sessions on LGBT relationships and domestic abuse, did stuff around self-defense classes, so really kind of making a big thing about this really important issue. Okay, it might not affect a lot of staff, but what it's doing is saying to staff that we give a fig. Yeah, and this stuff that might be happening to you or not, or it might be happening to someone you know, we as your employer care about that. We think that's an important issue. We think it's nothing to be ashamed about. And if that is affecting you, we're going to support you. Yeah, that's the message we're sending to people. So it's really destigmatizing it in that way and making sure that people recognize that actually there's nothing to be afraid of here talking about this stuff if I want to my employer. Whereas before there was just silence. Yeah? Same with cancer, lovely. Wear it pink, Breast Cancer Awareness Day. Everyone puts on pink t-shirts. Who's done that in their organisation? Let the record show 2 hands, 3, 4. There we go. Right, so a few of you have done that, and that's great. Because again, it's just a marker that says, yeah, we care. 1 in 2 of us will be unlucky enough to have cancer in our lives. So half the room here will have cancer. The other half of the room will be directly affected by it. Absolutely guaranteed. So whether or not you're affected, but you suffer it or you will be affected by it. So having an employer that recognises it's an issue, recognises it causes difficult circumstances and emotions and thoughts and has an impact on mental health for their staff, that's got to be a good thing, knowing your employer's on your side. Destigmatising financial health. So we did a whole programme of events where we brought in all of our partners and providers to talk about financial health, so how to restructure your debt, how to prevent you getting into horrendous loans and loan arrangements and so forth, how to plan your retirement, what does that mean, am I going to have the right income for me going into retirement, demystifying the LGPS, the local government pension scheme, that gold-plated pension that nobody in local government understands. So demystifying that, what are the options, what's that going to mean for me, what are my choices? Obviously bringing a reward gateway, naturally, to talk about how to use the platform to spend smartly. So to really start this conversation with our staff that actually, yeah, we get you've got financial health, and we get from time to time it's tough. So, you can talk to us about these things. And then we destigmatise loan finance, a lot of destigmatising going on, through smart tech. Has everyone here heard of smart tech? I can see a no, so I'm going to push on for those of you who haven't heard of smart tech. It's a reward gateway product, and it's very, very good. So there's our little THH Buzz tile that we click to get into smart tech. There it is. And this is what it is, basically. It is a net salary deduction benefit, which basically means an interest-free loan for your staff to go away and buy technology. Yeah, so they will just literally log on to the Reward Gateway portal, browse and choose their technology up to a spending limit. We've said £1,000 for our staff, and then they will get their e-gift card and they will go to Currys PC World and redeem it for the product. And it could be anything. So it could be a fridge, it could be a microwave, it could be a Hoover, it could be a laptop, it could be an iPhone, it could be an iPad, it could be an Xbox, a TV, whatever it is. As long as Currys PC World sell it, they can get it. So that's literally all it is. It's very, very simple to use as an employee. And the way we market it to employees, our employees, if you remember, 200 of the 600 or so, are caretakers. Yeah, they're probably on about 24,000 a year. Average salary, incidentally, in Tower Hamlets is somewhere in the region of 55 grand, because obviously we've got Canary Wharf there, giving it that kind of that boost. But they're not rich employees. So actually saying to them, you've got £1,000 here, whether your fridge falls to pieces and you just need a new fridge and you don't have 600 quid in your bank account to go out and buy a funky fridge. Yeah, that's actually important. That's actually, I could buy a fridge from my employer. That's amazing. I can go and do that now because you can't do without a fridge. Similarly, if you've got a sort of petulant teenager that's demanding the latest gizmo or gadget, you can go out and get them and you don't have to worry about being a bad parent. So that takes strain away from the employee about how they're going to manage modern life. It's tasty, quick and easy, in that it's really easy to apply, as I explained earlier. It's really easy to understand. You can set your own repayment periods and so forth. So it is really just quick, easy and tasty in terms of getting the right products that perhaps you wouldn't have been able to get before. I'm not sure any of those chicken dishes are tasty. They all just look like a sea of beige, don't they? It's like, that is an actual cookbook. Yeah, it's not good. So 0% interest and spreading the monthly payments, which are taken directly from payroll, so there's no sort of chance of falling behind into arrears and so forth. Dead easy for the employee. For the employer, it's really quite interesting because in many ways, it's exactly the same as what we've been doing for years. Season ticket loans, an interest-free loan, net deducted from salary, that you've done for years and that as an organisation you've managed in terms of cash flow, you've administered it through your payroll HR teams, nothing new there at all. This is just doing it for tech. In other ways, it's quite revolutionary. Because actually for us, this is the first time that A, we'd introduced any new employee benefit in 10 years. And B, unlike a season ticket loan, which is obviously for our interest as much as the member of staff, because it's in our interest that they're able to get to work, for Smart Tech, it's got absolutely nothing to do with work. You know, they just going out and buying a Hoover, well, that's not going to impact on Tower Hamlets Homes and our productivity and stuff, is it? Of course it is, because actually we're making it easy for staff, we're taking that pressure off in their life, and then that little chappie who's wearing his tie, who's really worried about where am I going to get my money from a Hoover, has actually got that little bit less worry, and he's focusing that little bit of time on his work and producing for a residence. So of course it's got something to do with Tower Hamlets Homes, of course it's in our interest, but actually it works for the employee. And it works for the employee, as you can see here, with the copious amounts of red. When we launched Smart Tech as a benefit in October, not last year, 18, you can see straight away the take-up that it had. We've cleared about 146 loans. We've cleared about £74,000 through Smart Tech loans alone. As you can see, it's still getting a fair whack even now. In terms of staff signing up for new loans, about £400 a time we find. So this benefit that has palpably nothing to do with work that we hadn't had for 10 years was perhaps something our employees were really crying out for. Yeah? And some quotes from our staff. Some really nice quotes. I mean, you know, they're using it to buy laptops and MacBooks and all this sort of stuff. Or I love this quote, which is from one of our employees who used their Smart Tech, £1,000, to buy an oven for their mum. This employee lives at home with his parents, of course. So, you know, he did it for a reason. But I mean, it's amazing, you know, but it's about, you know, the difference that made to his family life and, you know, the amazing thing he was able to give his mum and the pride that gave him. You know, it's a really impactful benefit, and it's something that from the previous slide you can see our employees craved. We also recognise that whilst we've destigmatised everything and we've kind of said it's okay, you can talk to us about all these horrendous things that are happening in your life, there are some things that employees still won't want to talk to us about. Yeah, there are some things. So we've got our EAP, and we've got sort of face-to-face counselling available in partnership with Minds. That's all professionally done and everything else. So all of that stuff that many of you might already have is all still there. And we sort of say, well, okay, talk to us about it, but give us as much or as little detail as you like, or just go over there and talk to them. We're providing that for you. We're providing that channel for you to access if you don't want to talk to your manager, if you don't want to talk to your employer. That's fine. And all of that negative, all the crap that hits you in your life, don't worry, talk to us, talk to this EAP over there, talk about it, it's fine. All of that sits within a wider program. So it's not just about well-being, it's about inclusion. So we've got our kind of diversity program that you might have, where we do all these fun events. We have International Women's Day, Black History Month, LGBT History Month, stuff for Christmas, all fun. And we do a lot of inclusivity stuff in Tower Hamlets Homes, all that community stuff I was talking about earlier. We win awards for our diversity and inclusion pioneering. We really do some good stuff, which I don't have time to go into today, but it's all part of this program of, it doesn't matter who you are, it doesn't matter what your background is, what your experiences are, whether they're good and there's stuff you want to bring to work and celebrate, whether it's bad and stuff you want to bring to work and talk about and work through with your colleagues, all of it is valid, and you are valuable for who you are because you're a human being. That's what it's about. It's about taking your well-being agenda and all the stuff you do to destigmatise all the negative bits and shunting it together with, let's just celebrate you. Let's just put that humanity, as the keynote speaker said this morning, back into HR. The results have been quite marked for us. So this is our sickness level. These are our top 5 reasons for absence, and then the orange thing's everything else. So that's our volume of sickness. We had a brilliant summer when it was really hot. No one took any time off sick. It was amazing. And this is where we started our program. That's where we had the epiphany moment. And this red line is mental health. So that is the volume of working days lost to mental health issues. And as you can see, it was about 160 days a month before we started. And then now, we're about 50 days a month. So that's where I brag a little bit. We've taken the volume of working days lost for mental ill health down by 2/3 in 2 years. Sounds good, doesn't it? And we're also now underneath the sort of sector benchmarks for mental ill health, which is a great thing for us. But you can see that decrease in mental ill health has been sustained now for quite some time. Also, the duration of mental ill health episodes has gone down commensurately. It's gone down by about 2/3. So our staff have still got mental ill health. They still go off sick. They have to go away and deal with whatever it is that's preventing them coming into work. That's fine. We have all of our processes, all of our return to work, nurse-led sickness scheme to help them through that immediate stage. But then they're coming back earlier. Why are they coming back earlier? I don't see there's evidence that they're being pressured to come back. The managers aren't screaming at them saying, you've got to come back, we need you. Maybe it's because actually they know their employer cares. That's my hypothesis. And it's backed up by what they say. So we've dropped a figure there. So back in February 2018, 53% of our staff, as I said earlier, said, yeah, you care about me. And now that's up to 74% of staff. So that's gone up by about 50%. So in 2 years, that has really shot up. So my perception that staff are coming back because they feel their employer is more supportive of them is my perception, because that's what my staff are telling me. So I'm quite pleased with those results. I think I'll write my award entry now on the back of those results. But my conclusions broadly are, we recognised that it was a big issue for our staff, and it was impacting on their ability to come to work. It's a huge issue, mental health. We recognise that there's that sort of interplay, and that actually it's all the stuff in their personal life that's causing them to go sick, not just the stuff that we can solve in work. So it's acknowledging that, taking that broad approach that crosses all those issues, and that isn't just about the negative, it's also about the positive of being you and being human, and that's all fine. And then tying it to our values, which is our values are everyone matters, and making life easier, which is what we've done. So smart tech makes your life easier. Coming to work and talking about your domestic abuse makes your life easier. So it's tied up to our values. It's really, really enforcing who we are. And as I said earlier, it's the thing about Tower Hamlets is that that's what Tower Hamlets is. It's about bringing people together from different communities, often in times of adversity, and really respecting and valuing each other for who you are, which is why it kind of works. So if we are a nanny, then are we a practically perfect one? Yeah. No, we're not. We're not complacent. Have we cracked mental health, or are we seeing presenteeism? Are people coming into the office with tears coming down their face? I don't see that they are, but I'm quite happy to be corrected. Perhaps my bigger worry on that front is we're now moving into the world of agile working, where home working is all the norm, and I can't see there if someone's crying between sending their emails. So that's something for us to think about as we're going forward. Manager resilience. So yes, we've sort of done all the managing stress kind of training. We get people in to talk to managers about how you have those conversations with employees. But obviously with destigmatisation comes a higher readiness for employees to talk to their employer about the issues they face. So we're doing a lot of work now on how to manage conversations in the workplace about domestic abuse, for example. You know, if an employee comes up to you and says, I want to tell you I'm being abused at home, as a manager, how do you deal with that? That's a new conversation. We've had conversations quite recently with employees coming to us and saying, actually, I'm in a really low place right now, I'm having suicidal thoughts, what can I do? Managers aren't equipped to have those conversations because they're not conversations that managers have ever had in the workplace. But now we've destigmatised them, we're finding those conversations are starting to happen. So it's really incumbent on us as we move forward to train our staff, our managers to have those conversations and give that support to their staff. We still have dusty terms and conditions. So we added some wellbeing stuff on, but those 3 folders you saw earlier are still as they were. They're still 10-year-old terms and conditions that don't talk the same language about everyone matters and making life easier. So we do still need to go back and review all of those and see if actually those are the things that are helping us, or are they reinforcing an old culture of sort of paternalistic nannyism even. And of course, the world moves on, doesn't it? And there's a plethora of new different things you can offer your employees, workplace ISAs, loans and things for rent deposit income, rent deposits and so forth, that we need to explore and we need to keep pace with. So I'm sure as we go on, there'll be more benefits that we're looking to implement to support our staff in their modern, complex, hectic, complicated and very different lifestyles. And that's me. Well, that's Tower Hamlets, actually, I'm me. That's it. Thank you very much.